something I've noticed a lot is that a lot of independent local businesses, garden centers included, don't have a website at all, or they think Facebook is their website, or the website that they do have is like reminiscent of Space Jam 1995, and it hasn't been updated in way too long, and it just does not meet the requirements of the modern customer for the garden center. And it's, in fact, this problem is so prevalent. I would say that probably based on my experience, and I'm very familiar with like the garden center industry and landscape, at least east of the Mississippi, especially. I would say probably a quarter of independent garden centers don't have a website. Like it's a high number. Like the amount of garden centers that think that like, you know, the website is unimportant, or they're just gonna like run stuff off of Facebook, is extremely prevalent. So I wanted to spend some time and space talking about that today, to like dispel some myths and common misconceptions, and yeah, just kind of talk through it. So so on this call today we have Sydney, who
Can I
is
say
a
something real quick?
yes,
Rebecca,
absolutely.
you don't want to bang your table. It's going to make a nightmare for editing.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I flail, so sometimes I'm like, tell the musician
Nervous
to stop making
flailing
noises.
is, yeah, it's important.
Rebecca,
Now
stop
you can
flailing.
introduce us all, but I just wanted
Okay,
to
perfect.
point that out.
Well, on the team here, we have 5 of us that work on websites. We work on marketing for garden centers. We have Sydney here. Raise your hand, Sid. Sydney works on branding and design for websites, and she actually sets up websites for our clients. Elizabeth is the copywriter, so she is familiar with what it means to write well on websites. We have Abby, who is just a fantastic strategic mind and knows how all of the aspects of marketing run together and work together to build onto your website. And then Katie is here, and Katie, you have amazing experience with branding and design and photography as well. You know the quality standard that goes into an online presence as a whole as well, I would say. So with that, yeah, I just, so we brought, we have our whole team here basically talking about this. So, if your garden center's website is still like considered a nice to have instead of your like number one digital storefront, then this episode is for you. So I guess,
Rebecca,
guys,
that's amazing that people don't have a website when 76 to 81% of shoppers actually go look at a website before they decide to buy. And in
oh yeah,
fact, the website, how it loads, that's how people
yep,
decide whether or not to do business. I think 75% of consumers judge a business just based on their website. So if you don't have a website, you're really cornering yourself out of a lot of the market.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, and you just said how it loads, and I think I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but not every website has to be like a $200,000, perfect website, but it has to also be functional. Cause like, I know I have that bias. Like if I go to a website and it looks like it's from 1985, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to assume your products aren't very good because you clearly don't care about updating things, but
Yeah. And there's all, like Abby, you're talking about the perception too. Like you could be the most high quality premier garden center in your city. And if your website does not reflect that quality and care you put into your business, then you're going to start sending everybody the wrong idea. So that's why this is so important. People live online now, just as they live in real life, and we got to show up. So let's talk about, guys, like why you need a website. I can't tell you how many small business owners from wineries and beyond, garden centers, what have you, who have been like, I don't understand why I need a website. So that, I think, is like our first main talking point. And, Abby, I want you to kind of speak on this a little bit too, if you can, like the fact that you don't own your Facebook audience, you don't own your Facebook page, you are at the mercy of Meta. And so when we see a business whose entire website is on Facebook, their website, what does that do? Like how does like what's the interplay between social media and the website? Why do they need both?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much, and I think it's so funny to me. For the listeners who aren't in our back end company chat, I just found a Facebook post I made in 2023 where for my, promoting my social media services. And I talked about how your social media is not a website. You
Yeah.
still need to hire somebody or do your own social media, right? Like we're still important,
Yep.
but you need to have both. And the end point I walk away with in the post, I reread it as like a prep for this podcast, is that you can't blame social media for not working when you don't have a foundation for social to build on. And that's how I view like a website. I think that, yeah, there's so much. You don't own your Facebook audience. You, even if you have the best content in the world and you're, doing everything right, you're also still playing the algorithm game every day. And when it comes to your website, when they're there, they're there. So there's that, and then there's also making the most out of social media and sending them places. So, if you're putting all that effort into social media, where is it going? Obviously, yes, engagement is important and awareness is important, but having a website allows you to build on that, to send people to your website, to build an email list, to, if you are
Yeah,
like a
right.
retailer, if you're selling things online, to put them into a sales funnel. So the two can play together really well, and it's just going to amplify the success of both. It's not like one or the other. We're not saying you don't need
Yeah.
social if you have a website.
Yeah,
They're both, they
absolutely.
should
Like
play
you
together.
definitely. And I see that too. I see people that have beautiful websites and then they're the ones sitting there saying, I don't feel like I need a Facebook. And I'm like, well, you definitely would benefit from having social media. And one thing too to keep in mind for our listeners is that your updates, your pictures on your social feed, they kind of end up getting a little bit lost after a while. It's not a good place to maintain bulletins, I would say, or information. If you share, for example, your hours for the month on social media, and then you post 5 more posts, that's gone. Like people aren't gonna really. That's not a good place to keep it as like a sole place. Like you need a storefront online where people can go to find that information. Yeah. So and before you say like you can put your hours up on Facebook, like yeah, you can, but sometimes Facebook's hours are really glitchy and they don't save, and so yeah, you do need your website
You're
to.
also then assuming that everyone's going to be able to access Facebook easily, which
Correct.
is
Yeah.
bold because
Yeah.
yes, Facebook is popular and we should be using that to market, but
Right.
there are people who are maybe choosing not to use Facebook
Yes.
for many reasons. And this goes for all of the social media apps. So if I Google your business and it comes up with Facebook, maybe I don't have maybe let's assume I'm on mobile when I do this,
Yeah.
and then I have to open your Facebook. So then it's either like prompting me to download Facebook app, or I have to view Facebook within the browser. And that is not
And
where it's
that's
meant to be viewed. So a lot of stuff, it's
yeah.
not user friendly. It's really easy to be missed. And especially if you have an audience that is not like a digital native. So we're talking, anyone really over the age of 35, they're going to probably be really stressed out by that. Even people
Yeah.
who are comfortable online, like they don't want to view Facebook in a browser on their phone. Like they want to be able to find stuff with that. And they don't want to scroll through your feed to have to find
No,
stuff.
they
They want it
don't.
to be
They
there.
really
So
don't. Yeah.
yeah.
You want
Exactly.
to make sure the experience is frictionless. The second that they experience friction, I'm trying to Google your business, what are the hours? Because I forget, even if I'm even a frequent customer, and I have to dig through Facebook like that to find it, chances are I'm not going to dig. I'm just going to be like, okay, whatever, I guess I'm not going today or
Yeah, for sure.
ever.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it's a seamless experience, and your website, like, it allows you to create that digital storefront that then you can tie in all of these marketing channels to it. So you can tie in your Google My Business and set your hours there too, so they pop up immediately. Um, push and pull to Facebook and all these other platforms, to where it can kind of be the hub of your business online.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
step
And
further on that,
yeah.
sorry, Rebecca, I think
No, you're
one
good.
huge thing to consider with social media If your social media is running great, that's amazing. That's what we hope for you. That's what we want to see. But have you had a problem with social media recently and you've needed someone to speak to in terms of customer service? If you are not Meta verified, if you do not pay for the blue check mark monthly, you cannot speak to someone. So if there is an issue with your account, this happens in the photography world. Sometimes you'll share something that they deemed against community guidelines and page is gone. So you have
Right.
collected all of the information in one space and one location for 10 years. It can
Yeah.
be gone in one day. You do not own it,
Yes.
and you
Correct.
have no legs to stand on when there is an issue. And
Yep.
website is future proofing that from the get
Yeah.
go.
Absolutely.
And
That's a
we,
great
I mean,
point.
we work with someone, we work with more than one person where that is exactly the case.
Yeah.
And it is a long road back to when that happens and you don't have the ability to regain your page that you lost access to, or maybe even you were just restricted in a way. But it's a long road back, or there's a lot of then hoops you have to jump through. And if you have something like a website where you're capturing that information, or at least, yeah, still then doing marketing in another
Yeah.
realm while you have to rebuild that, there's so much more going on for you. And yeah, you live,
Yeah.
that's such an important point, Katie.
Yeah, it really is. Can't tell you how many businesses they're like, well, we had 13,000 followers on our Facebook and then we got locked out of our Facebook forever. And now we have 5,000 followers. And now you have all this work to do, rebuild that. And then you're causing confusion with your customer base because there's no central hub for them to go. So, absolutely, that's a fantastic, fantastic point. Also, if we're looking at the customer journey, like the customer, like, yeah, what Elizabeth was saying about how, a giant percentage of customers will look you up online before stopping by your brick and mortar store. Two kind of points about that. Me personally, as a consumer, if I'm looking at a business and they don't have a website, or if their website looks like it hasn't been updated in 15 years or more, I'm going to perceive that business as being a little scrappy. I'm going to perceive that business as being out of date in every way. And I might still stop by, but it's not going to be like, I'm not going to feel excited and reassured. I'm not even going to necessarily trust them to provide quality customer service or have quality product.
And
Because I'm going to, yeah,
your website is your digital storefront. Like, think of your
it
homepage
is.
as Main Street of downtown.
Right.
People
Exactly.
are online now. Like, it is digital
Mhm.
interaction. And so that really is the first lasting impression that someone gets from you, your homepage of your website or the link that you're utilizing to send them
Yeah.
to this location. And so I think when you have one impression to leave online, I mean, you've gone through Google's homepage, you have a second to capture their attention. And when it's a bad first impression, that chance is gone.
Yeah. And then if you think about your competitors too, what's your competitors' websites look like? Do you have at least two competitors within short driving distance of you whose websites are pretty good and easy to navigate and feel intuitive, and you can get a sense of what their business stands for? In order to compete with them, you really need to match them on the digital side, on that digital storefront. It's like, once again, just like Katie just said, imagine having storefronts on Main Street. You got to keep your windows clean. You got to keep it, you got to make sure that it's inviting for people to come by. So,
And there's
uh,
another
so
aspect of that, Rebecca, that I think people are a little confused now. Everyone's
yeah,
worried about the robots, right? The robots are taking over
right,
search engine,
right.
everything, life. I'm sure the impending robot apocalypse will
Yes, of
someday be there.
course.
Be nice to your vacuum robots, please.
Yes,
But
yes, it's so important. Say thank
tell
you
them they're
to
good.
Alexa and Google.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're listening. But
hmm
garden centers are fighting against the robots. So instead of fighting against them, work with them, because your competitors certainly are. If you're able to harness them and understand why are the robots choosing to show my competitors' websites over mine to potential customers, well, you can grab that market. Absolutely. You're not socked in to being the
Absolutely.
57th result on the Google page. You can get up to the first page But in order to do that, you have to have a website that is optimized not only as this pretty
Yes.
storefront that people will trust, that people want to go see in person, but that the robots want to go see. And
Yes.
that goes
Right.
into SEO and GEO, which I'm sure our
Yes.
listeners don't really want to learn all about that, or perhaps that's another episode because we know that
Yes.
stuff. But there is a possibility for the future. Katie, you mentioned future proofing. If you want to grow, if you want to
Yeah.
continue to be a business, you got to play the game. This is how you do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think, Elizabeth, you mentioned SEO, and I think that when we are talking about small businesses, right, I think it's easy to roll your eyes because it's like, oh, so I have to get my website, but then it comes with, then I have to do SEO. And sure, there are levels of SEO that can be done. And it would be amazing if you have someone like you, Elizabeth, available to really optimize SEO. But almost every decent web hosting platform, everyone knows I'm a big Squarespace fan. When you set that up, it already your SEO is going to be better, and it makes it so easy for you. It's going to say, like, what do you want your SEO tag to be? And then, so just by having a website that is,
Absolutely.
semi-modern, even if you're not doing blogs and this and that, your
Right.
SEO ranking is going to go up. So it's like you can play with the robots,
Yeah.
you know, a little better. You might not jump from 57th to first without doing a decent amount of work, but like just by having a nicer website, you're probably going to jump up to maybe 20th, maybe 10th. Like, you never know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
Yeah.
something too, like that, it so much can be done with just, like baby steps.
Exactly. The
100%. And
baby
Well,
steps.
Abby, it's interesting you say that because on the McCuskers Marketing for Garden Centers website, we do have a blog post that can help people start on that journey of SEO. If you just kind of want to do it for yourself, we have those.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, what
Absolutely.
was that URL again?
Yeah. I'll put it in the notes. Is that something we can do with podcasts? Put them in the notes.
I think you can, but I think it's also just McCuskersMarketing.com. You can check that
It's
out. You can also
McCuskers.
Google us and we'll
That's true.
pop up because we know SEO and
That's
GEO.
true.
Hey.
Because let's see, that specific blog is how to attract more customers to your garden center by ranking higher on Google. We have that SEO guide for 2025. So we'll update that for 2026. So head on over to McCuskersMarketing.com. And yeah, you can learn about SEO and GEO, or we can do it for you. And yeah, so yeah, good point, Elizabeth. We do have that content on our website. And you know what? Like, so I feel like we just covered the problem with not having a website. And we keep saying like nice website versus outdated website. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about what does it mean to have a nice updated website? What does your website need in order for it to be effective and serving the customer? First thing I can think of is you need to have high quality photos of your garden center, your products, like treat it as an opportunity to show people what it's going to be like to visit. You need like the basics. Where's your address, phone number, and contact info? Like make it so that it's possible for people to reach out to you if they need to. And yeah, like I'll let Sydney take the lead on this too, because she is so used to working on websites across multiple industries, but also especially for garden centers. What shows up on a good website for garden centers, Sydney?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing is just figuring out the best user experience. Like I said, frictionless experiences, so is it easy to very quickly find that address, hours, contact info? If I have to dig for it, again, I'm probably going to go do something else. You know, like you said, the high quality photos of your products and displays, like put the investment of time that you do in your storefront, out on the floor, like you're making sure everything is clean, sweeping and everything.
Yeah.
You want to do the same for your website and make sure it's not all over the place. There's not photos that aren't loading.
Yep.
Parts of the layout are all jumbled to where you can't even read it. You want to make
Yeah.
sure colors are good enough to where you can read it, or people that
Yeah.
may have some visual disabilities like color
Yep.
blindness. You want to
Right.
make sure they can read it too, because you don't want to exclude them. Um,
Yeah.
you know, some of the other things.
I think
My
of like
brain's not
mobile
working.
friendliness. Something that
Mhm.
falls through the cracks
Yeah,
all the time is like
That's what,
mobile
yeah.
friendliness.
Huge.
Well, like
Yep.
yeah,
85% of your customers are on their phone.
Oh, 100%. And also, Sydney, you were mentioning load time. I got to throw in a statistic here because I'm the nerd of the group, so I might as well. For every 1 second delay, it reduces the user satisfaction by 16% with loading time. And 40% of website visitors leave a website that takes longer than 3 seconds to load. You got 3 seconds.
Yeah,
And
3 seconds.
70% of consumers have said that speed of a page affects their willingness to actually buy from the company. So, what you're
yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
Sydney, is from years of experience, Sydney makes beautiful websites that actually work. Isn't that nice? And she knows how to fix things on the back end. But that's one of the things I've seen you always pride our customers' websites on, Sydney, is it's easy for the user, and not
Yes.
just that it's pretty, but that it actually gets the user to where they want to go.
Absolutely. It's a nice
yeah,
experience. And speaking of the user experience, we are definitely, when we say user experience, we're talking about the experience of your customer interacting with your brand online. That is extremely important and will affect your sales. But also, a common issue we're seeing too is that garden center owners are putting their websites on, WordPress, for example, or they're hiring marketing agencies to set up their websites on these, god awful, very complicated systems, and the garden center owner themselves have a bad experience with it on the back end. So what we like to do is we like setting up a powerful, simple website that has a great front end experience, but also has a great back end experience, because we want you to be able to go in and update your website and it not feel like rocket science. You're not terrified you're going to break something in case we all get hit by a bus, or if we're all on the same bus and it goes off a cliff, or whatever, we get abducted by aliens. We need you to be able to go into your website and figure things out very easily. And so that's why we use, platforms like Squarespace, where that's possible and very easy to do.
yeah. There's a lot of I've seen it in a lot of instances where a business will pay for like a really nice WordPress website and it looks nice and everything, but then
Yes.
something happens to their web developer and they can't get a hold of them.
Right.
They might just stop word developing, or not word,
Yeah. Like they
developing and stuff like that.
retired. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
or
don't
they got
farm
abducted by
out.
aliens.
Right.
And then it's like, well, crap, my website is down because
Right.
it's this complicated
That
system that I have to like manage and control myself. Um, and I can't get a hold of him and I have no idea what to do. And so
Yeah.
you're just kind of stuck with a website that's down, versus
Yeah.
like, I like Squarespace, like Abby said, because it's
Yeah.
super easy to use. We can invite anyone to be able to use it, and it's relatively easy to figure out how to use it if you're a little bit tech savvy. But like if that site goes down, usually, not in all cases, but usually Squarespace is on it and is working on fixing it for you. So if it happens in the middle of the night, like they're working on it. If there's issues with domains, that's a whole other story. But
The domain.
that's like the biggest thing though, like, is if it's not easy for you to update, then we see that all the time of like they had a web developer or someone else on their team even that was really tech savvy, set something up, and then they're like, I have no idea how to do this, so they just never update it, and then it's like, well, that was a waste of time and money because we're not updating it with anything accurate because we don't know how to. And then it just sits there and collects dust in a way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's huge, huge, huge to make sure that it's easy for both the customer to access and you to access for all of those reasons.
Yeah. That is a very
These are
real
going to
issue.
seem really simple, but I've thought about it a few times. Visit your website every once in a while. I think that's something that I like, especially with mobile. Like even I have been
Yes.
caught in this. I
Oh, yes.
helped my husband with his website for his business, and I try to take my time and do it all. But every once in a while, right, you're crunched for time. And so one thing that I have had to get better at is like quadruple checking that everything goes over to mobile, especially when making a change on the fly. And like that is just something like I've just gotten in the habit of before I like log out, like always I view it on the desktop and I go and I view the new like updated page on your phone. But if you don't just like occasionally go to your website, like you might sometimes like widgets and things break. So
Mhm.
you know, you might not know, and always better to be you to find it than a customer have to like complain if like your contact form doesn't work. But like, you know, set a reminder on your phone, like just type in your website like every couple months and just like,
Yeah.
you know, visit it and make sure it's all functional. And like, if you can't read it and you're frustrated by your website, so are all your customers.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, Abby, because me and Sydney both like recently kind of did this with our website, McCuskers. That I Elizabeth, I think it's funny that you were like, and Rebecca, what's the URL? And I'm like, what? But you know, we went to the website, we're like, ah man, like that needs updated, that needs updated. And it hadn't been that long since we went there. It had been like probably 3 or 4 months, like since we actually like spent the time reading through the website. And I'm like, yeah, we have some things we need to update. You're going to need to do that probably like at least twice a, you know, for garden centers 4 times a year. For every single season you need to go in and update it. But you know, just that's a great point to go in and just make sure everything's up to snuff. So y'all, let's talk about something that comes up with every single garden center. E-com. Do they need e-com on the website? Because some garden centers, I would say in my experience, most garden centers are like, well, we set it up during COVID and it sits there and collects dust. Or we get a percentage of customers that buy from our e-commerce site and there's like 4 of them and we love Cheryl because it's all Cheryl. I literally have yet to see a garden center who is like, thank God for e-com. We absolutely like ride or die need this. Just personal experience. What experience do you guys have with e-com websites, first of all? And also, like, you know, I guess let's talk a little bit on what does work for selling your products on the online space for a garden center. You know, because that's definitely like the whole e-com site. It's expensive. It's time consuming. You need a setup in the back end. You need a place to put your, you know, what you're gonna deliver out, or you know. So that's a whole process that I want to talk about too.
It's a
So
whole
one of
can
our
of
most
worms.
successful clients doesn't have e-com at all, and they
Right.
are widely successful, but they also make sure to keep their social media updated and they keep their website updated, not just every quarter, but for every event that they have. They stay active in the community, and that kind of headache of an e-com, it's not needed for them. Sydney,
Yeah.
you were
No.
about to say something.
Yeah, it's a can of worms.
Good.
Like it can be so helpful and everything, but I think it really just depends on your industry, and I think just the garden center industry really isn't there yet. But I also feel like they feel that push of like, oh my god, everyone's ecom, ecom, ecom. You
Right.
know, my brother's sister-in-law is selling shirts on ecom, so we need to do it. Is not always the scenario, you know, because there's the reality of like you're selling living things,
Yeah.
or at least the
Right.
majority of your product is living
Yeah.
things.
I agree.
It makes it hard to ship. I did just actually
Yes.
have an experience where I bought some purple sage off of Etsy, and I was like, this might be a total waste of money.
Yeah.
But I really wanted it because I killed my last one, and I couldn't find it. I'm
Yeah.
not the greatest with plants, but I could do websites.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but
Exactly.
then I bought it, and then I got the shipping information, and I saw it was coming all the way from Washington, and we're in Ohio, and I was like, oh no, is it going to be dead by the time it's here?
Mhm.
It took like a week because it ain't Amazon
Yep.
2-day shipping. And so I was like so worried that it's going to be dead. He wasn't the healthiest little guy, but he was okay. But you have that thing of, you know,
Yep.
I'm understanding of it because I know this industry and, you
Yeah.
know, websites and everything. But like, you might have some customers that are like, oh, I found this website, but all of their plants arrived dead. And
Right.
they're across the country, and then they're that one person that's shouting from the rooftops about how
Yeah.
terrible your plants are when that's not the case.
Yeah.
So you open that, you know, possibility depending on like what your range is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a huge thing to set up. You know, if you have a
It is.
POS system, you need to figure out if it links into that. A lot of these garden centers are multi-generation. They're huge. They have 30,000 SKUs. Okay, cool. How do you want to put that on the website? Because someone has to put 30,000 SKUs on the
on
website.
the website.
So, and I'm going to tell you, I work with a client. They're not they are a hat shop. And they rely very deeply on their online website. And I was going to speak to this later, but it's a second full-time job in addition to running her brick and mortar. For them, it is necessary because, they're not the kind of place like a garden center where you necessarily, I mean, they do, you want to go touch and feel, but they're high cost items. And
Right.
and I, when you're at a garden center, I find too, you want to touch and feel it. And you also often then get other things, like I might have gone in for an annual basket, but there's a lot more opportunity to then pick up maybe, this also is really nice. Maybe I'll add this, or maybe I'll do, a mixed planter and get some other stuff. This client
the
doesn't
purple
have that, but so
sage.
it's necessary. But just to I'm going to give it back to Sydney, but to her point, it is, I'm not necessarily like against it, but it's something to consider to do it well and to keep up with it, and to you have to have photos for all of your things, all your products online. You have to make sure you know what your inventory on them is. It is a serious commitment, and I think if you're going to do it, you need to do it well. But anyway, back to you,
Abby,
Sydney. Sorry.
when you said, oh, you kind of nix people out when you go into a garden center, you're like, oh, wait, I also want to check out this. Oh, I also want to check out this. But if you're online, that usually doesn't happen. As a consumer, you're able to be much more focused, and that's not necessarily helpful when you're trying to sell plants. And I actually went to my local garden center, had that exact same experience where I'm just going to get this one plant. And I went, ooh, I wonder if they have a pink princess philodendron, which we had written about for a different client, and I talked myself into buying one. It's doing
That
well.
was my fault,
It's doing
because I love those.
That was your fault, Abby. And so you do lose some of that traffic. So you have to go, what's the balance here? And also, what is my time? What is the capacity I have for this? And if I am going to put this out to someone else, have a vendor do it instead, okay, what's your budget for that? How much is that going to eat of your profits? So it's a lot of math you're going to have to do.
You're going to have to do some math.
I
also think if you want to, first of all, you have to represent your product inventory in some way online. There's nothing worse than being like, I wonder if they have XYZ plant, whatever plant, and you have no idea what plants a garden center has. So, one thing that we do is cataloging. Like, we might have a catalog on the website that maybe isn't 100% representative of all of your products, but still gives an idea okay, you do have a houseplant section. I was wondering if you had tropicals. Do you even sell vegetable starters? The basics, you want to at least say, yes, we do sell perennials, and here's some examples of what we sell. But that doesn't mean you need to go hard with, we need a whole operational online shop. Just focus on brick and mortar on the, the floor you have at your garden center, because you do want those people to come in and experience your garden center too. So, that's, I think as a team here, we're a little bit more pro catalog, and for most garden centers, maybe not the full e-com experience, So
I was thinking when Sydney was talking about her experience, of ours, my own personal, and I've had a few times where I've butted heads with my husband because he'll order something online as far as a plant. I'm like, well, why? Let's go shop local. But ours was a specific situation where we put, our landscape out back. We wanted to have a tropical feel. And so there's very specific, plants where it's okay, well, we only have so much room. I already have a lot of house plants. So we need these things that are a tropical feel, but will, survive in ground. And those are not always available at local garden shops. So that's something to consider. And also maybe, down the line, start with a website, and then maybe you get to a point where you realize your annuals maybe don't need to be on there, right? Especially the stuff that flies out the door in person. But if you have a stock, if you grow, things like tropicals, and it is something, particularly some of those kinds of items, like different kinds of palms or whatever, where, you can grow them year round, and you do have the ability to ship them if it's, something that you're confident shipping, and it's something where people are looking for it because it's more of like a niche item. Like I think that's where like you might be in that middle ground where it is worth it. But you can also do that. Like you can have an e-com for a specific function of your business, but not all of it. You know, you don't, just because you put your tropicals online to ship does not mean that you have to ship your, you know, your hanging baskets is also, that's an option.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is true. So, you know, to kind of recap, gonna close this out. To kind of recap, like, please have a website. Please understand that the modern consumer is going to be expecting you to have a website, and is going to be expecting you to have a website that has a good experience for them. If you, I know that as a garden center owner, you pride yourself on excellent customer service because you are not Home Depot. You are not a big box store. You pride yourself on the fact that a customer can come in, ask your team questions. They're going to be taken care of. They're going to be given high quality plants that are going to perform very well once they get into the soil. So that means that you got to back it up with that same quality and customer service online. And it's not rocket science. Please don't feel like you have to go to, you know, the advanced degrees of WordPress. Please don't feel like, you know, and also, you know, please don't throw something up on, you know, Wix either, though. You know, like don't.
Yeah.
I feel like WordPress is going to come for us after that.
Yeah. or Wix, but please just do Squarespace. This podcast is not sponsored by Squarespace. We just really like it.
It's not sponsored by Squarespace, but it might as well be because we love Squarespace over here.
Yes.
No way affiliated or receiving money for this.
Yeah, we should.
Please do Squarespace.
But we could be.
We could just, you know, they could just waive the fees for our website. That would be
I know,
nice.
exactly. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe someday. It would be great, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, if you guys have any questions at all about websites, about your website, about help I'm locked out of my website, about domains, about integrations, anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email me, Rebecca at McCuskersMarketing.com, and we'll help you out and we'll answer any questions you have. If anything, we just love meeting garden center owners and talking to you and helping you out. So yes, thank you so much for listening. We are the team from McCuskers Marketing for Garden Centers, and we appreciate you listening. See you next time.